They fired me in the middle of my own presentation. I was halfway through unveiling a new sustainable material strategy, something I had spent 6 months researching and developing, when Savannah Lang, the brand new CEO of Lumen Structures, stood up and said, "That's enough, Marcus. Please step outside." I stood there frozen, the slideshow still flickering behind me, while my team stared, confused and stunned. Savannah didn't blink. Dean Miles, the head of project operations and her obvious golden boy, was smirking like a child who'd just broken a toy on purpose. My mouth went dry. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't want to believe they'd actually do it. Not like this. My name is Marcus Reed. I spent 15 years at Lumen Structures, an award-winning architectural firm focused on green buildings and sustainable design. I started there fresh out of graduate school, back when we were still renting a tiny space above a bakery and pitching projects to eco-conscious startups, not billion-dollar development groups. I was one of the originals. I stayed late, mentored new hires, and pioneered half the systems they still use. I wasn't just a manager, I was the backbone of our design infrastructure. Or at least, I thought I was. But everything changed when Savannah took over. Savannah Lang was in her early 30s, glossy, fast-talking, with a tech startup mindset and zero architectural experience. The board loved her, said she'd modernize Lumen. What she did instead was gut it. She brought in her own people, froze key projects, and started talking about restructuring for scalability. I kept my head down, kept working, thinking if I proved my worth again, I'd be safe. I was wrong. That morning, I had been called into a high-priority strategy meeting and told to present my new EcoMod material simulator, an enhanced version of the firm's legacy tool I had helped develop a decade ago. I was proud of it. It could revolutionize how we calculated environmental impact. I thought this was my chance to finally get some recognition from the new leadership, but they didn't want to hear it. They wanted a reason to humiliate me. When Savannah asked me to step out, I did. Confused, but calm. I stood in the hallway, heart racing, palms sweating. 5 minutes later, Dean walked out, holding a sealed white envelope. "This isn't personal," he said, handing it to me like a parking ticket. "But we need to make space for more agile thinkers. You've done good work, Marcus, but your time here is up." I opened the envelope and read the words I'll never forget. "Your position has been terminated effective immediately." Dean actually smiled. "You'll land on your feet, maybe do some consulting or, I don't know, teach?" Then he turned and walked back inside the meeting like nothing had happened. I stood there for a long time, staring at that envelope. They kicked me out of the very room I helped build, discarded me like old software. No thank you, no farewell, just a cheap severance package and the door. But what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that I had already found the email 2 weeks ago. Dean had accidentally CC'd me on a thread where he and Savannah outlined their next-gen team initiative, listing every senior staff member they planned to replace before Q3. My name was at the top. They called us outdated liabilities. So I got ready. I backed up everything I had created, everything on my personal hardware. I began documenting, refining, and improving the EcoMod system in my own time, using my own tools. I created something better, something they didn't even know existed, and I reached out to someone who would value it. As I walked past the glass conference room, I could see Dean back at the head of the table, laughing. Savannah was scrolling her phone, bored. They thought it was over, but they forgot one thing. You don't burn a man like me unless you're ready for the fire that follows. I stepped outside into the sunlight and pulled out my phone. I opened a new message and typed one line. "It's time, launch everything. Phase 1 starts today." I hit send. I stood on the sidewalk outside Lumen's glass tower, phone still in my hand, thumb hovering over the screen. The message had been sent. "It's time, launch everything. Phase 1 starts today." And just like that, the game began. But let me back up a bit, because this didn't start in that boardroom. It started months earlier, with whispers in the hallways, projects quietly reassigned, younger hires replacing veteran voices during meetings. I watched it unfold piece by piece. The company I gave 15 years to, nights, weekends, missed birthdays, slowly turning its back on the people who built it. It became clear the moment Savannah arrived, experience didn't matter anymore. She didn't want leaders. She wanted loyal followers, people she could mold, control, discard. Dean? He was her perfect puppet. All ambition, no ethics. The week before I was let go, I noticed something strange. My login access to internal project servers was accidentally revoked. My name was removed from 2 of our largest proposals without explanation. Savannah canceled a recurring meeting I'd led for 8 years without saying a word. When I asked HR about it, Richard, the HR lead who used to joke with me over coffee, suddenly turned cold. "Just some procedural reshuffling," he said. "Nothing to worry about." Nothing to worry about. I wasn't stupid. I started backing up my personal research. My version of the EcoMod engine, let me clarify, was mine. I built it on my home machine, over weekends and sleepless nights, frustrated by how slow and outdated Lumen's legacy system had become. I didn't tell anyone because I knew how this place worked. They'd either ignore it or take credit for it, but I didn't build it for them. That same week, I had coffee with Elijah Tran, the director of innovation at TerraCore Design. We'd known each other for years from industry conferences, always exchanging ideas. He had heard whispers that Lumen was changing direction, and he asked me outright, "If they push you out, what's your next move?" At the time, I didn't have an answer. Now, I did. After sending the message, I made my way home. I didn't go back inside. I didn't pack my office. Let them keep the framed certificates and desk trinkets. I had already downloaded everything I needed. Documents, prototype reports, simulation data, all dated and tracked to my own devices. I wasn't just protecting my work. I was preparing to use it. That night, I received the reply from Elijah. "We're ready. NDA and terms incoming. Also, we want your team if they're with you." I nearly laughed. My team. The irony was, the people Savannah and Dean thought were dead weight, they were the ones holding this firm together. Maya, my junior analyst, could run cost simulations with her eyes closed. Stefan, the senior architect they tried to force into early retirement, had saved a $20 million contract last year with one design tweak. These weren't dinosaurs. They were titans, and Savannah had no idea how fragile her foundation was without us. By morning, Phase 1 was in motion. I sent personalized messages to 5 of my most trusted teammates. I didn't give them promises. Just the truth. What happened to me? What was coming? What I was building? By noon, I had 4 replies. "I'm in. Just tell me when. They're doing the same thing to me. Let's burn it down. God, finally. I've been waiting for this." And one from Maya. "Tell me you have a plan." "Please?" I did. And they'd soon see it. But the real shock came that evening. Around 6:30 p.m., my phone lit up with a name I hadn't expected to see so soon. Savannah. I stared at it for a second before answering, keeping my tone even. "Marcus," she said, sweet like syrup laced with poison. "I heard you didn't complete your exit interview." "Wasn't really in the mood." There was a pause. Then her voice shifted, cooler. "We need to discuss your files. We noticed several prototype documents were inaccessible on our end." I almost smiled. "That's odd. Must be an internal issue. But don't worry. Everything I worked on during company hours is still on your servers." "And anything else?" she asked carefully. I let the silence stretch. "Savannah," I said quietly, "you fired me in the middle of a meeting. You don't get to ask for favors now." Another pause. "We'll be reviewing our legal options," she said stiffly. "You do that," I replied. "Make sure you start with Section 12.4 of your own employment contract." She hung up, and I exhaled, finally letting the anger go. But just as I was about to turn off my phone for the night, a new message popped in. It was from Stefan. Dean just tried to take credit for your EcoMod system. He pitched it to a client as his own. I stared at the screen, my pulse rising. He what? I couldn't sleep that night. Stefan's message kept replaying in my head. Dean just tried to take credit for your EcoMod system. He pitched it to a client as his own. He stole my work. The system I spent a year refining. The one I built at home, on my time, with my own hands. The one they didn't even want to hear about in that boardroom. And now Dean was out there parading it like a trophy. I should have been furious. I should have wanted to scream. But what I felt instead was something colder, something sharper. I opened my laptop, logged into my personal dev environment, and stared at the code I knew better than my own heartbeat. Every line was tagged, time-stamped, backed up to a private repository with logs that stretched back months. All of it irrefutably mine. I didn't need revenge. I needed a spotlight. The next morning, I met Elijah and TerraCore's legal team at their downtown office. We went over the documentation line by line, source files, metadata, version control logs. Then, Elijah pulled out a folder, one I hadn't seen before. "We've drafted the preliminary patent application," he said, "filed under your name." I blinked. "You're serious?" He leaned forward. "This tech could change everything, but it has to be yours, not buried under someone else's logo." I nodded, trying to swallow the sudden tightness in my throat. After everything they took from me, this was something they couldn't touch. By noon, we'd launched the first teaser post on TerraCore's website. Coming soon, Eco2, the next generation of sustainable design technology, developed by Marcus Reed. No details, no code, just a bold headline, a sleek image, and one very loud message. I'm not gone, I'm coming. The impact was immediate. I started getting texts within minutes. Maya, "What is Eco2? Did you make this?" Miguel, "This is huge. Is this your work?" Stefan, "Dean is losing it in the office. He thought you'd roll over." I didn't reply right away. I was already writing the next set of messages. This time, with links. I sent personal offers to each of them. Maya, Stefan, Miguel, and 3 others. TerraCore had cleared roles for them, senior positions, better pay, full benefits, and most importantly, creative freedom. By the end of the day, I had 5 acceptances. They weren't just leaving Lumen, they were following me, but the real punch didn't come until Thursday morning. That's when I got the call from Denise. She was Lumen's senior client partner. We'd worked together for over a decade. She was firm, shrewd, but always respectful. If Denise was calling me, something big was happening. "Marcus," she said without pleasantries, "we have a problem." I stayed quiet. "Dean presented your EcoMod upgrade to one of our largest clients yesterday, claimed full ownership, but there were discrepancies in the data he showed. Something wasn't syncing with the legacy models." "Because he doesn't understand how it works," I said calmly. "That's what I thought." So I checked the metadata on the files. They were pulled from a personal Google Drive. "Marcus, they had your name all over them." I sat forward. "You're saying he used my files, with my credentials still embedded?" "Yes. And the client noticed. They forwarded the files to our compliance team." I felt my heart thump once, then again. Denise lowered her voice. "Look, I'm telling you this off the record, but people upstairs are panicking. You need to be ready for what comes next." And then, just when I thought I'd heard it all, she said something that made the room tilt. "Marcus, Savannah didn't know Dean was doing this. He went rogue. She's furious." I sat in stunned silence. "So let me get this straight. Dean didn't just lie to the clients. He didn't just steal my work. He did it without Savannah's approval. He threw a grenade in the middle of their boardroom, and Savannah was holding the pin. I didn't have to destroy them. They were already tearing each other apart. Comment the number 3 if you want to see how Savannah reacts, and what I do next. You're not ready for this." The moment I found out Dean had gone behind Savannah's back, everything changed. He didn't just cross a line, he detonated every bridge on his way down. For days, I had been moving quietly, preparing my next steps with precision. But now the gloves were off. The teaser for Eco 2 had stirred the water. What I unleashed next turned it into a tsunami. That Friday morning, TerraCore made it official. We launched a full press release across every major architecture and sustainability platform. TerraCore Design welcomes Marcus Reed as Director of Innovation. Exclusive launch of Eco 2, a patented system designed independently by Reed. I didn't hold back. The statement detailed how I'd built the system on personal time, off company resources, with full documentation to prove it. It included timestamps, version histories, even code snippets with my name burned into the metadata like a signature. And then came the hammer. We attached a legal notice to Lumen structures, notifying them that their use of the EcoMod enhancements now constituted unauthorized use of proprietary IP. They had 10 business days to remove it, or negotiate a very expensive licensing deal. By 10 a.m., my inbox exploded. Maya, just saw the press release. You're everywhere. Miguel, clients are freaking out. Savannah called an emergency town hall. Stefan, Dean didn't show up to work today. No one knows where he is. Denise, internal chaos. Legals scrambling. You've hit a nerve. I sat in my new office at TerraCore, floor-to-ceiling windows behind me, and watched Lumen burn in real time. It felt good, but it wasn't enough. I wanted them to feel it. I wanted every person who had ever been called too old, too slow, or deadweight to feel this victory with me. At noon, we rolled out Phase 2. I sent out final offer letters to the rest of my old team, people Savannah and Dean had labeled redundant just weeks ago. Roles had already been carved out for them at TerraCore. Better pay, real titles, a culture that didn't treat experience like a disease. By 2 p.m., 7 of them had accepted. Lumen's technical core was dissolving by the hour, and then the twist came, bigger than I ever imagined. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Elijah, my new boss at TerraCore. You need to see this. Check your email. I opened it. Attached was a document, leaked anonymously. Lumen Structures, Internal Audit Report. I scrolled through it, confused at first. And then I saw it. Dean had been funneling development funds into a shell consulting company, one he owned. He'd been double billing Lumen for freelance development services, using my enhancements, packaging them under a fake company, and collecting checks under the table. And Savannah hadn't been blind. She'd approved the invoices, not because she knew the scam, but because she thought she was cutting Marcus Reed out of the loop. She helped him do it. And now it was all exposed. The source of the leak? The document properties listed the author as Emma.Tan at lumenstructures.com. Emma, the quiet analyst, the one who always kept her head down, avoided drama. She had seen everything, and she chose a side. Within an hour, the document hit industry forums. By 5 p.m., it was picked up by a construction tech blog with the headline, Whistleblower Leaks Alleged Fraud and IP Theft Inside Lumen Structures. Lumen's stock froze. Calls flooded in from clients demanding answers. Board members were pulled from vacations. Legal teams across 3 cities went into crisis mode. And me? I sat back, silent. Calm. I didn't lift a finger. The call came on a Tuesday morning. My phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen since the day they kicked me out mid-presentation. Savannah Lang. I let it ring twice before answering. Marcus speaking? There was a long pause. Then her voice, no longer sharp and smug like before. It was thin, strained, like someone trying to hold the walls up while the ceiling was already caving in. Marcus, we need to talk. I didn't say anything. I know things have gotten complicated, but what Dean did wasn't authorized. We were misled. I was misled. I leaned back in my chair, watching the sunlight flicker against the edge of my new TerraCore badge on the desk. You signed off on every payment, Savannah. I didn't know. You didn't ask to know. I cut her off. Another silence. Okay, she said finally. Then let me fix this. We're prepared to offer a full licensing deal for Eco 2. We're also willing to discuss compensation for damages. Quietly, no lawsuits, just resolution. I almost laughed. She still didn't get it. This isn't about money anymore, I said. This is about the people you dismissed, the team you dismantled, the careers you crushed under the weight of your ego. I'm trying to be reasonable, Marcus, she snapped. I smiled. You tried that too late. That afternoon, TerraCore's legal team delivered the final blow. We refused Lumen's licensing offer. Instead, we filed for a full injunction, banning them from using any form of the EcoMod system until the patent dispute was resolved in court. That meant every active project built on the stolen system had to be paused, restructured, or scrapped completely. And then, the dominoes really started to fall. 3 of Lumen's largest clients terminated their contracts within 48 hours. 6 senior architects resigned in protest. Their board called for an emergency leadership review. And Dean? He didn't show up at all, because the fraud investigation had been handed over to the state attorney's office. He was facing criminal charges, embezzlement, IP theft, wire fraud. Turns out Emma's whistleblower leak had legs. The feds were involved now. His consulting firm had drained nearly $1.8 million from Lumen's budget. But Savannah wasn't off the hook. She was named in the inquiry. Willful negligence, breach of fiduciary duty, misrepresentation to shareholders. Her resignation was announced the following Monday, effective immediately. No farewell post, no press release, just a ghosted LinkedIn profile and a string of panicked industry whispers. And as for me, I stood in TerraCore's main conference room that afternoon, watching through the glass as my old team, Maya, Miguel, Stefan, even Emma, ran our first full deployment of Eco 2 for a major government project. Not one of them looked back. They didn't have to. They were home now. Later that evening, Elijah walked into my office with a grin. Did you see this? He handed me a tablet. The headline made my heart thud once, then settle into something deeper than satisfaction. Lumen Structures faces total restructuring amidst scandal. Former director Marcus Reed recognized as key innovator behind rival surge. Below it was a quote from one of our former clients. If Lumen had listened to Marcus when they had the chance, they wouldn't be in this mess. For 15 years they used me, took my time, my loyalty, my silence. They saw me as a fixture, comfortable, reliable, forgettable. But when they tried to erase me, they forgot one thing. I don't break. I rebuild. Comment the number 3 if you think Savannah and Dean got what they deserved. And subscribe if you want more stories like this one. You won't believe what I'm working on next.